So how are you? You're in Greece, right?
I've been, I've been living in Paris for more than 20 years now, and I just finished the project, and I'm starting a project early May. So I just took a little bit of time off to come and see my father
Oh, that's
and
convenient, isn't it?
friends.
Fantastic. Are you enjoying your time then?
Where are you?
I'm in the UK, mate. I'm in the south of the UK.
Okay, okay.
So yeah, far away from me from where you are. Anyway, shall we well, first things first, I guess I should say congratulations on the Oscar nod.
Thank you very much.
I know it's a question everybody's going to ask you, but whereabouts were you when the Oscar nominations were announced?
I was at home. I didn't know the exact hour because I was finishing a project at that moment. So I didn't want to get too caught up in it, in a sense. So there are friends that send me messages on the phone, and that's how I got the news.
Oh, brilliant. So were you not too worried, or did you just not want it to get in the way of your work?
No, it was. I mean, it was a combination of both, but I didn't want to be really caught up in it. I just wanted to let things happen the way they naturally did. So it was mostly about having a mindset that like that, and also I was pretty concentrating on a project at the time, and I wanted to keep my mind on that.
That's a fantastic attitude to have, I guess. Whether you do or don't get nominated, you keep working on the next thing, don't you?
But as an editor, you learn the capacity to block things, even your
Absolutely.
feelings sometimes, which was a bit the case on the father. So I'm kind of trained to be able to do that.
I can imagine, like you said, you want to concentrate on your other projects, but it must be so nice to be recognised this way.
Oh no, but of course. I mean, I'm not being snob at all about it. It's just that, and it's a huge, as you said, it's a recognition by the people of your craft.
Yes.
So that's the best kind of recognition in any line of work. So obviously, when I heard the news, I was ecstatic. I just wanted it to be simple and not to get caught up in the whole process, because there was also the Bafta nomination, we
Yes.
were which was a big deal also.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
there were I was nominated and got the award from BIFA, which is the Independent Film Awards in British Independent Film Awards. So there was a whole thing going on,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is amazing because that's what you. I mean, we don't do this for the rewards, but it's super gratifying, and it's also something, as everybody knows, that can open doors to expand your opportunities, to expand the people with whom you can work. So it's obviously a big deal.
Exactly. And now for the rest of your life, you're going to have Academy Award nominee whenever.
Nominee, yeah,
That's never a
wherever
bad
I
thing.
go.
It's what's before we get into the father, something I was curious to ask you is what steered you towards editing in the early stages of your career?
My first love in life was music.
Oh
So
wow.
I had a big connection with music. When I was around 12, I played trumpet, and then I moved into electric bass. And when in my early teens, I was very, very into making music with my friends and things like that. And then a bit by accident, one day when I was around 18, 19 years old, I found myself in an editing room, and I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I felt completely at home, and it was a very, very strong feeling. And I also felt a kind of connection between music and editing, and also between the role of a bass player in a band and the role of an editor in a movie.
Yes.
So I got really intrigued by it, and really soon after, I realized that was what I want to do in my life, and that's what I pursued doing. I left Greece when I was 23 years old, a bit on a almost from one day to another. It was a decision that came really quick, and I left. And I had the chance to be able to start working in Paris quite quickly, even though when I arrived there, I didn't even speak French completely.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a journey, but I always knew that editing was my goal, and I had the chance to be in Costa Gavras' production office, who is a great filmmaker who's Greek French.
Absolutely.
So that was my school in a sense, because I didn't go to film school.
Fair enough.
And I arrived one day there to help, because they were on production, and I asked if they wanted somebody to be like a runner or something really small at the time, because I was just starting. And I arrived one morning and I stayed for 12 years. So it was
fair enough.
Yeah, and the advantage of that place was that they were doing everything in house. So they were doing the image editing, the sound editing, some of the effects. They were all in the same space. So it was an amazing school, and also working with people that were la crème de la crème, as they say in French, of technicians. So I mean, I don't say this to belittle the film school, because it's super important. And as somebody that learned the craft by doing it, I had the chance to be surrounded by amazing technicians and artists. So that was a real learning opportunity.
So being a runner was almost your film school in a way.
Yeah, because I started as I would start by doing stuff for the production office, and then I was trainee editor, and then I was assistant editor. I did the whole.
You did the classic built your way up the system.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough. That's I've got a similar plan, so it's inspirational to know that it can actually work and happen.
No, but I mean, it's very often in any line of work, being at the right time at the right place. It's extremely important.
Oh, absolutely.
And then work because I work like a maniac.
Good for you,
I've been doing this for more than 20 years, and I have a real passion about it. So I give my whole energy and time goes into editing. It's not by accident that you make it. You need to put in the work, obviously.
Oh, of course, and especially with something like film, which is so difficult to get in. If you're not 110% passionate about it, then you're just wasting your time ultimately.
And also, I had the chance because I started in a period where an assistant editor would be part of the whole process, which is now, because of budgetary issues, it's not always the case. So now that I'm an editor, I make a real effort to battle for my assistants to be able to spend a long time with me on the project, because that's how you essentially learn editing. It's super important. So I know that for young people now, it's a bit trickier because of the whole budget situation. But they have another advantage that I didn't have at my time, that now people are super accessible. You can get in touch with people everywhere easier. And I recommend to everybody to spam with emails the people they want to work with.
Just what I've been doing.
It can also work.
Absolutely. I do notice this arrogant opinion that some people do have with editing. Well, it's just throwing a few scenes together, but there is especially a film like The Father, to really intricately edit a film together, it does take a special kind of art.
Film editing is extremely complex.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's a technical. There's a technical part. There's an artistic part that's super important. And there is also the human part that is super important, and it takes a lot of work, because you work with people. Cinema is a team sport, so you really need to be able to deal with others. So generally, we say that editors are kind of shy people and not very social, etc. But we give a lot of energy being social with the people we collaborate. So there's a lot going on in there. So it's also something you can never really master. So it keeps you always working and working and working, and that's really it's a craft that's really it provides a lot to you. I mean, to me, it helped me to learn distance myself from things, which is an important part of editing. It helped me dealing with stress because it's super stressful, and you cannot let yourself be consumed by your stress. Even during the pandemic, it provided a mental bubble, so I would be able to deal with the whole situation. So it's so complex that it gives you so much things to deal that you can never get bored actually doing it, which is a good thing.
Absolutely. Am I correct in saying that The Father finished editing quite a while back before coronavirus really hit? So you didn't have the struggle of having to edit at home with this film in particular, right?
Yeah, but we had the struggle that it never got released at the time where it was supposed to be released. And I had the chance to see it once because we were at the Sundance Film Festival last year, and that was the only time where I saw it with the actual audience, and it was a great experience. But I only lived it once with this film.
Yeah, getting hold of The Father has been a particular issue. I was lucky enough to see it because Borderline Film Festival in the UK was screening it, so I was able to get my hands on one of them, but I've only been able to see it the once, and there doesn't seem to be a very clear route of release for the film, which I can imagine for you and for Florian is quite a stressful thing.
Yeah, especially for Florian, because I mean, that's why you do this. And but there was also a conscious decision in the UK to get a theatrical release.
Oh wow!
Because Lionsgate is going to distribute the film in theaters the 11th of June, and I'm really proud that they stick to that because I'm grateful for streaming services and platforms, etc. But to me, cinema is something to bring people together, and I'm really happy that they're going to hopefully release it in theaters in June.
Well, that's amazing. I had no idea that was the reason, but that is quite especially in times like this where you'd think that by this point they would just want to be like, here, just have it, get it out. To actually stick to the guns and go for a theatrical route is it goes beyond being professional. It's very it shows that they have great respect for the art of it.
Yeah, and that's why I'm happy for it because. I mean, I remember the screening in Sundance, and we were the theater was huge. It was a big audience, and we were sitting quite in front in the front seats, and the whole place was laughing during the whole screening, which was super gratifying because the film deals with the things that touches everyone, and that are quite emotional, but. Thanks to also to the performance of Sir Anthony Hopkins, everybody was having lots of laughs during the scene, the film. Sorry, and I remember that in my island there was this huge guy with a baseball cap and kind of the idea that you have of
you sure it wasn't me?
And what we call a mountain of a man. And I was having my eyes on him, and at the end of the film, he was crying so much. And
wow.
The woman next to him, probably his wife or his girlfriend, I don't know, had her arms around him like this, and it was so gratifying to me to live that emotion that they were having at that moment. So that's why I'm saying, being in a theater with a bunch of friends and people that you don't even know. That's cinema is all about.
I'm grateful for streaming services, and I hope they don't go away. But in terms of, especially for a film like The Father, which is extremely emotional, I think the best way to see it is with an audience.
Yeah, because we need to adapt and involve, obviously. So platforms and streaming services provided work for people during this pandemic, which is super important. They gave a way to continue and share stories, which is super important. So I'm not saying that at all as a knock to the streaming services, but because I grew up like that, for me, the cinematic experience is in a dark place with a bunch of people and a huge screen.
Yeah. Something I'm curious to ask you, just on a personal level. I do editing myself, whether it's just for my own personal use or for at college. And I was wondering, what editing software do you use?
Oh, most of the time I use Avid's Media Composer,
Oh, okay.
because that was since the early 80s that became the standard in the industry. There were other softwares like Lightworks or things like that, but it kind of became the standard. That was the software that I learned when I was signing up, and that's the one that I'm most comfortable. But it's mostly a question of what's your preference as an editor. There is no right and wrong in that subject. But for feature films, most of the time you use Media Composer.
Fair enough. Because I know that Premiere Pro is becoming a lot more the norm these days, and I know a lot of editors such as Kirk Baxter have steered towards it, and I was wondering whether you've taken the step into Premiere Pro yet.
No, I'm really. I've worked on Premiere. I worked with early Final Cut. I've done everything, but my choice, and that is again completely personal, is Media Composer.
Absolutely. Okay, so getting into the father specifically now. How did you and Florenzella end up working together on this film?
I was contacted by the production. They called me and they said that Florian was looking for an editor for his film, and that Sir Anthony Hopkins was attached to the project, which obviously
Wow.
already gave me a motivation, let's say it like that. And then I read the script, and I didn't manage to go to the end. I had to stop and gather myself before reading the whole thing, because it was really strong. And that doesn't happen every day, so you already know that the basis is super solid. And so I was really I really wanted to be part of the project. And then I met with Florian, and we had a great conversation, not so much about the film, but just a meeting to get to know each other. And we had a good chemistry, and the next day he called and he said that he wanted to work with me. So that's how I got embarked in this adventure. And also he told me something on our first meeting that really intrigued me. And even though, as I said, I was already really motivated, I find it brilliant, because he told me that it's a puzzle, because this film is kind of a puzzle, but you can never solve it. And I thought that was brilliant, because there are films that have fractured narration, or that they go back and forth in time, and then you can put them together. But this script, because it's an adaptation of a play by Florian Zeller, and the way it works is that, as Anthony's mind would have worked, you can never really put it together. And I thought that was a brilliant idea.
Did you have any personal experience of dealing with somebody who's going through the early stages of dementia, or did you just purely just kind of edit together what you had?
No, I had the experience, and it's funny because when I got the phone call, I was again on a little break from between projects, and I was in Athens, and it was the first time because I don't come back often, so I came to see my father, who lives in Athens, and it was the first time I felt like my father. I saw him like an aged man. It was the first time I realized that he was getting older.
Yeah.
I know that he doesn't like it. He wouldn't like if he hears that. But so when I started working on the film, especially in the beginning, I was alone with my assistant in Paris, because the shooting was in London, and I was putting together with her the first assembly. And there was a couple of weeks there that I got really affected emotionally by the film, because obviously I was thinking about my own experiences. So, as I said in the beginning, it's something that I blocked out because I cannot have all that emotion in me during the whole process because it's a long process.
Absolutely.
So as an editor, you need to find a balance where you can block your own emotion, but not block the emotion that you get from the material. So that's really important to an editor's mindset, especially in projects. And it's not always by design, but I'm a kind of person that it happens a lot that I would work on a project that reflects completely something that I'm going in my personal life at the time. So it's something like an editor needs to work on to be able to find that balance.
Absolutely. In terms of The Father, did you edit it scene by scene or chronological order, or did you not really have the option where you just given was each scene that was filmed just kind of sent you as filming, as was so filming?
During the first assembly, I was kind of doing things as they came, but since the film has there's a narrative tool in the film, that's the production design. So the film was actually done in a studio. Yeah,
I must say, I gotta say now, amazing production design. I'm so happy it was honored.
Peter Francis did an amazing job, and he's also nominated with a good reason.
He has yeah.
So as they filmed they did the filming because they would build a set, and then they had to tear it down to build the following set. So it was filmed by chunks of sets and not completely chronologically. So, but as an editor, you used to, because it's very rare, either by scheduling issues or set issues. It's very, very rare that a film gets shot chronologically. So you're very used to be able to do it in whatever order it comes in. But the production design was a key thing on how the film was edited also, because you get a lot of rhythm as an editor from the way it's shot. You get a lot of sense of rhythm by the performances, which in this case, it was an editor's delight to work with that type of cast. And also there was the parameter of the production design that I needed to keep in mind in the way the film was edited.
Fair enough. Yeah, I want to just say it again. The production design in The Father really it tells a story, doesn't it? In a way.
No, it's a character. It's a character, and at the same time, is the reflection of Anthony's mind. It plays both ways, and there is also something really lovely that's going on. That you have. I mean, you start with an apartment that is yellowish, and then it becomes bluish, and there's, as the action goes forward. For example, Olivia Commons' character Anne comes back from groceries with a plastic bag that you've seen in the beginning of the film. So the apartment goes forward, and at the same time the narration goes backwards.
Wow.
And that's the amazing storyteller that Florenzella is, because that's not something you build in editing. That's something that already there from the conception of the story.
I didn't even notice that when I was first watching it, and wow, just the little things, eh? And it makes me wonder. And it makes me.
Sorry.
It's okay, mate. It makes me wonder. Did that make editing more difficult and stressful because you had to be careful that you included these little things?
It's not. I wouldn't say stressful, because it's a bliss. As an editor, it's a bliss to be able to use those type of things, because I knew from the start it's not a project that calls for flashy editing. That's not at all the way this, because as I said, the point of the film is to put the audience inside Anthony's head. So we're dealing with the rhythm of Anthony. So everything is done to reflect his own senses in a way, if I'm making myself clear. So it's not about the difficulty, is just how you make your choices. So for example, you would use a wide shot when you need to really set a space. And then if you want to confuse the audience, you can go to the close-ups. And then if you need to bring back a set that we already seen, you try to use a shot that is similar. So you create balance. So it's not it can be challenging, but it really is the essence of editing. And also trying to be, which to me is very important as an editor, trying to be subtle and efficient at the same time.
Oh yeah, very important.
That's very, very important.
Just carrying on a bit what we were talking about, because like we were saying, The Father is a very contained film. About 90% of it is in that apartment, and I was wondering if because of this, did it make the editing easier, harder, or did it just not really matter?
Again, it's not a question of easier or harder. It's just in the end, you're trying to serve the story as much as you can. So the whole focus is to be inside Anthony's head. So it's just a way that it's a kind of a compass, I would say, to guide you through your choices more than anything else.
Absolutely. Keeping in mind, I can't remember the word dementia being used specifically in the film. I don't know whether that was a purposeful decision of Zeller's or not, but I was wondering, how did you convey to the audience Anthony's situation?
When I read the script the first time, to me the word that popped in my head was nightmare, and not in the horror sense of nightmare. So there was a conscious decision on my part. And when we started to really collaborate on the edit with Florian, I realized really quick that it was part of his process too. It was to put the audience in a space where they get confused, but have that thin line where you can never lose them. So that was another balance we need to find in the edit, because there are situations where you get an information, and then that information gets dismantled right away in almost the next scene. So it's that's what I'm talking about when I say nightmare. So you know that as an audience, you get as lost as Anthony, and that's why you don't need to say that word dementia, because you already spin the head of the audience in a sense that they don't even understand what's going on, and that's the brilliancy of this.
It's the point, isn't it? It's interesting you say that. When I first watched it, I was talking to my parents, and the first thing I said, it wasn't trying to be a horror film, but it was the closest film to a horror film that isn't a horror film. Because, like you say, it is a horrible nightmare.
Yeah, I'm glad that you put it that way, because that was exactly what was in my head the first time I read the script.
Absolutely, it really does put across to you just how. I mean, it's all well and good knowing what dementia is, but to see it from the perspective of a film and see it from his perspective and know that this isn't just a horror film or just a film, and this is a real life thing is quite a scary thing.
Yeah, and also the other thing that was super important in the editing was that it is the perspective of Anthony. We're in his head, but people who suffer from this type of illnesses, it's hard on them, but it's also super hard on the people that surround them. So we also need to find the balance to make the other characters of the film coexist in a good way, because it wasn't about making a showcase of Anthony Hopkins' great performance, even though he's amazing in this movie.
Amazing.
And that's where Olivia Commons, for example, comes in, who is somebody that completely blew my mind as an editor by her acting and the chemistry they have between them. And it allows the audience to shift their empathy. So you're with Anthony, but then you're also with Anne. And then when Paul, or the man as he's also called, that is played by Rufus Sewell, that suffers also from the situation, then you have empathy even for him, even if sometimes he's not the easiest going person in the film. And then there's Imogen Spoot's character that is the caretaker that has that beautiful smile. So you say, oh, this poor young girl is going to take care of this guy, and so it's also about shifting empathy during the film, and that's really interesting editing wise.
Absolutely. When so does good acting help you when editing?
Oh, good acting is, as I said, because as an editor, you take a lot of rhythm from the actors, and having performances like this, it's the best gift that you can have as an editor. I mean, the subtlety that they have, both Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman, even with a little a look or a little gesture or something small that tells so many things, it allows you to be able to tell much more of a story than just the dialogue, and that's a really big part of cinema.
Oh,
So it's
completely
really
agree.
important. You know, I mean, and it's really an editor's bliss to have performances of that caliber.
Speaking of the acting, I read that you never met Anthony Hopkins or Olivia Colman during the editing process. Was that just how it happened, or was this a proactive decision of yours?
No, it's a choice. I didn't want to go to the set at all, and I usually don't really. I have enormous amount of respect for the editing for the acting craft. Sorry, but it's not very helpful for me to be around actors because I prefer to see them as characters, and I'm not saying that at all to undermine them as people. It's not about that at all. It's for me as an editor much easier to just see a character and not a person, because sometimes when you're around people in everyday life, you can pick on little mannerisms that they have, and when you see them on screen, you ask yourself, is he the character? Is he him? Because it's something that you already know about the person. For example, it happened to me on a movie that somebody I know really well was was having a role, a speaking role in the film, and I had a really tough time cutting his scenes because I would get too influenced by the person that I know.
Wow,
So I try to I mean, to each his own. That's my own personal taste. There are editors that love going to set, and again, to each his own. It's a complete personal thing. But I had the chance to meet Anthony Hopkins after the editing was finished, and when Florian suggested we could meet him because we were in Los Angeles at the time, there was no way I would say no to meeting
oh,
him, because
no
you
way.
don't say no. It's Anthony freaking Hopkins. You don't turn down something like that.
He really is a legend. Did you ever get to meet Olivia Colman in any sort of sense?
No. I've never met Olivia Colman, and it's somebody that, as I said, completely blew my mind, because I think she's an amazing person without knowing her, by her work and her way of being. But also, she gives you something you can that affects the edit. That's why I wanted to say about it. You can keep a shot on her face, and then you can keep it a little bit longer, and then something else happens, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
almost magical. And it's I was quite impressed. I mean, I was already impressed by previous of her works, but going through the whole material with her, you get another idea of the caliber of an actress that she is. And to me, she was absolutely amazing.
She is amazing. Olivia Colman's one of those actresses that can, a lot like Anthony Hopkins, to be fair, in this film, she can go from being super funny to super dramatic in a flick of her fingers. And
Yeah.
she's extremely popular in the UK. I can tell you that
Oh
much.
my! There's a reason. I mean, I remember her even from comedy, as you said, from funnier roles. and then the chemistry between the two works perfectly, in my eyes at least, in this film. They complement each other because Olivia Commons has also another. I mean, Anthony Hopkins has this advantage that sometimes the audience has an idea of him, so you can play a little bit with it. That gives you you can scare the audience a little bit with him, if you see what I mean.
I know
without
what you're talking
going
about.
too far, obviously, because it needs to be super subtle. But we all have the image of him as Hannibal Lecter. So it's not about really doing a homage to that. That's not the point. But it allows you to play with the audience a bit in that sense. And on the other hand, Olivia Colman, once you look her in the eyes, you completely identified with her. So it gives the emotional balance that the character of one needs to be able, as I said before, to shift your empathy between one and the other.
Of course. When you're editing the film, obviously you need the screenplay to an extent because it tells you the story, but do you use the screenplay heavily, or do you just kind of know the orders of the scenes and then do you edit it together in which way you think's best?
When I start editing, I don't even have the script on my desk.
Fair enough.
I take notes while I read it before. I read it usually once, twice. I take a lot of notes. I gather sounds from my sound library that I think fit the script because it's part of my process. But while I'm editing, I don't usually look at the script because I don't have the fear to fail. I don't care if I will edit a scene in a way that the director won't like it, because even if he doesn't like it, it will take me 20 minutes to recut it, or it can also spark an idea, even if it's not exactly the way he wanted. It can spark an idea. So it's always, I always say this to editors, that you cannot be afraid to fail when you edit. You cannot have that fear, and because editing is it's a balance of being super confident to be able to be free and make all the choices you can make, and at the same time suppress your ego because you are there to serve a film and not yourself. So as an editor, you need to have that kind of balance. But when I work with the director, obviously he has especially in a director like Florian, that this whole thing came from his mind and from his play. I have a complete trust on him. If he feels like something needs to be shifted a little bit, I have the confidence to know that that's probably the way it should go. So it's also a collaboration.
I'm curious to ask. Obviously, you mentioned Florian and his play and how he wrote the play quite a long time ago now. If I'm right.
Yeah, I think it was like 10 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. So, were you familiar with Florian before he gave you the call about The Father?
No, because unfortunately, I'm not much of a theater person. I'm much more of a cinema guy because I like to have the buffer of the screen.
Me, you
to
both.
Me, theater is very, very direct, and sometimes it's not easy for me to appreciate it as much as I should. But I've seen obviously brilliant plays, and I like to go to the theater from time to time. But I wasn't aware of the play, and I didn't want to know anything before and reading the script and starting the film. I didn't want to see excerpts of it. I didn't want to know at all about the play before editing the movie.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So, were you put on board as the editor before the screenplay was finished?
No, I was no. The script was done. I became part of the process. I think like 3 weeks before the shooting started.
Oh, wow,
but,
okay.
Yeah. But when we met with Florian and he decided to work with me, I didn't want to know anything about the play. I just read the script, and the only thing that was important to me it was what was going on the screen with the material. I didn't want to get influenced by the way the play was done.
Does Florian work very closely with his editors, or does he have a lot of trust just to let them get on with it and then he can look at a much later stage?
I mean, to me as an editor, I like to work closely with the director, because I feel like a film has one personality, and that personality is the personality of the director. So to me as an editor, I need to be able to put on screen what the director has in mind, either a woman, a man, or a woman, it doesn't really matter. So I like to work close with the director to be able to have that connection, to be able to know their sensibility so I can translate it. But then there are times when if they're too present in the editing room, we have the same connection with the material, and that's not good, because one of the two needs to have a distance. So a lot of times, even when they're in the editing room, I tell them to go sit in the back of the room, or take a walk or take a week off and go do completely other things. I mean, I'm very self-sufficient. I can work by myself, but it doesn't interest me as much as the process of getting inside the other person's head. And that's, of course, it has to do mostly with films that, because in France, usually the director writes the script. It's a very auteur-based cinema. So if it was a director that it was just a film that somebody else wrote, and he went just to shoot it, and then he doesn't really want to be part of the editing process, that's a whole other a whole other way to function. But I usually really like to be in the to really have to not to and that's a lesson also for young editors, because the director is in the room doesn't mean that he tells you what to do. There's also always the way to do what you want and to express yourself. It's not like they will say cut 2 images here, and that's not at all how editing works. So it's just the idea of the collaboration again.
It's interesting you say that, because I've been into film for a long time, and I always thought it was the director who had final say on the final cut of the film.
The director has the final say, but nobody will refuse a good idea.
Fair enough.
So if you come up with a good idea, they're probably going to take it.
That's fair enough then. Right, okay. I've got one final question for you, and then we'll be able to wrap up. What did you enjoy most about working with Zeller on The Father?
Well, I mean, this project was, I'm really proud of being part of this project, because as I said, it had an effect, a personal effect on me. I think it has an effect on the audience. I really like the fact that it's not a film that teaches you lessons. It's a film that puts you in a situation and let you decide how it affects your life. And I think that's really important. I'm really proud that it's a film, as we said, that keeps the audience active, because I think audiences should be active, because you need to pay attention at details all the time. And maybe most of all, I mean, it made me grow as an editor and as a person. And also at the end of our collaboration, I'm honored to say that Florenzella is a friend of mine. So
fantastic.
Even in the human side of things, it was something that ended really well. So it was an overall one of those great experiences.
It sounds like you're the type of person where so is it fair to say that if you don't feel like the chemistry's good with the director, then maybe you're not interested?
It's very fair to say. I mean, it hasn't happened to me often, but if I lose respect for the director I work with, it kind of messes me a little bit.
Okay, well, that's all. You've answered all my questions, Yorgos, but I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining me. It really meant a lot to me.
Don't worry. Thank you, Benjamin.
Congratulations on the nomination, and I wish you and the Father crew well. I wish Florian well, and I hope to speak to you again in the future about a different project.
I would be glad to.